When Social Security started, I think the first Social Security check was sent out in like 1940. The
Wow.
the average life expectancy, you were lucky to live until 65. So
Wow.
they set the retirement age at 65, knowing that most Americans would not even live to be able to collect Social Security. Now
Wow.
you have large demographics of people regularly living until 90 and beyond.
Yeah.
And the system just wasn't set up for people living 30 years on Social Security and collecting a check. So something's going to have to change. They're going to raise retirement age. It's going to go from.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Calvin Russell here. Super excited to bring you all yet another guest speaker. Okay. Now, listen, she is a financial advisor and she's been giving people not only financial advice, but retirement planning as well. Okay. And as we all know, we need to have certain things in place, not just with our credit, but of course with our finances and start preparing for the future. All right. So, listen, get your notepads out and you want to make sure that you are taking some notes, okay? But listen, she doesn't have a lot of time, but I want to go ahead and introduce you all to Robin. Robin, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Awesome, awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for carving out your schedule, spending some time away from your business, your family, and obviously all of the other obligations that you have to make time for today. We greatly appreciate you.
Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, my audience, they're not impatient, but they like to get right into it. Okay. Now, you mentioned the other day that there were some lies that that people's that well, of course when they have like a financial advisor, but you said that there were five big lies that your financial advisor tells you about retirement. What are some of those lies?
Well, and I've told some of these lies myself as a financial advisor, and I think people are getting more savvy about retirement planning.
Mm,
A big lie, people retire at 65. We have
mm,
that kind of ingrained in our mind that 65 is the age of retirement. And the reality is of the future is people are going to be working a lot longer.
mm.
And so it's preparing people to understand that many Americans will likely work until their very late 60s or early 70s.
Wow. Wow.
Another big lie is the average life expectancy in America is 77, 78, and that is accurate. But your life expectancy can vary wildly based on, income, race, gender, where you live, your occupation. And so I regularly do retirement planning for 95 as
Mm.
expected life expectancy. So you have to really look at yourself and your demographics and use that to create a retirement plan for yourself.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Now, let me ask you a question because you mentioned how I guess that's the average retirement age, or is that the age that you would want to retire, like that 65, 70? But you essentially said that that number is kind of going up. Do you feel like that's
Mhm.
because of the economy, or why do you feel like that's increasing?
Demographics. We just don't have enough younger people to replace a lot of the older people. And if you
Mm,
go to countries like Japan, Korea, you will see a
yeah.
lot of old people working, people who
Mm,
look like they should have retired decades ago. And it's simply because they don't have the demographics to support the population. They don't have enough children and young people to
wow.
support the elderly people. And the same thing is happening in America, where we just don't. Baby boomer is a large cohort of people. All the
Yeah.
other generations afterwards are smaller cohorts. And so people are going to be working a lot longer than they anticipate simply because we don't have the demographics to support the retirement system.
Wow. Gotcha. So it's the demographics. Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
That makes it, man, that makes a huge difference. And then what are some other lies that you feel some financial advisors are telling people about retirement in general?
Well, I think this one is going the way of the dinosaur, which I think is a good thing. Social Security and pensions will be enough. About half of baby boomers have access to a pension, right? Almost no one in Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z has access to a pension. Social
Wow.
Security. Social Security works when you have two people who are married working together, both getting individual Social Securities and pooling them together.
Yeah.
A lot of people in Millennial, Gen X, Gen Z are not getting married. So
Right.
that Social Security is not going to be sufficient.
Mm, got you. Wow. Okay. Man, that's a lot. That really
Mhm.
is because I know some people. I mean, I know, of course, as younger people get older, I know, but some of them are probably thinking, "Well, I'm paying into Social Security, but there's also a chance I'm probably not going to get any of it when it comes time for that as
Mhm.
well, too."
Well, I
Wow.
do think you'll get something.
Okay.
Will you get what is promised? I don't know.
Mm.
When Social Security started, I think the first Social Security check was sent out in like 1940. The
Wow.
the average life expectancy, you were lucky to live until 65. So
Wow.
they set the retirement age at 65, knowing that most Americans would not even live to be able to collect Social Security. Now
Wow.
you have large demographics of people regularly living until 90 and beyond.
Yeah.
And the system just wasn't set up for people living 30 years on Social Security and collecting a check. So something's going to have to change. They're going to raise retirement age. It's going to go from 67 probably until 69 or 70.
Yeah.
And they're probably also going to raise the cap on taxes collected for Social Security.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
So now let's talk about this, Ben, because there's obviously some things that we can't control, and there may be some things that's obviously coming up in the future. But you mentioned how someone could easily, won't say easily, but how someone could retire in 7 years, starting from zero, even if they're at age 60. How can they do something like that?
Mhm. So I don't want to say it's the norm, and like I
Yeah.
don't want to present it as anybody can do it because that is just not accurate. It requires a lot of capital. Like if you can put away $200,000 a year for 7 years, sure you can retire. How many
Yeah.
people can really do that?
Right.
How many people can really do that?
Right.
And the scenario I gave was a woman who experienced a major health event in her 50s that wiped out a lot of her retirement. And so she was starting at zero at age 60. She had a great job that
Yeah.
paid exceptionally well. She had steady work and she had the ability to work until 67. So she had a
Mm.
lot of factors working in her favors that a lot of Americans just don't have. Because if she didn't have one of those factors, the whole scenario falls apart.
Wow.
So don't
Yeah.
wait until you're 60 to start, saving for retirement. It's not the reality that most Americans face. Start as early as you can.
Start as early as you can. Okay.
Mhm.
So now, of course, I know a person can start at 60, but what are some things that a person should do at 60? And then let's go into a couple like some younger ages. Let's say half of that. So, what are some things a person can do at 60? And then what are some things a person can do at 30?
Okay. There's not much you can do at 60, to be perfectly
Mm.
honest. It's like whatever a person comes to see me and they're 60, it's kind of brace for impact. It's like whatever
Wow.
work they have done has already been done,
Yeah.
right? And we're just putting the finishing touches on it, or we're just making minor adjustments. But if I could do something for a 60-year-old, it would be get in a time machine, go back to 20, and start over again. What I
Yeah.
would tell a 30-year-old, it depends on the circumstance that the 30-year-old finds themselves in. Ideally, in an ideal world, people would be saving at least 10% of their salary
Yeah.
towards retirement and future goals. The reality that we live in, just most people just don't have it, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, I would say do what you can as early as you can and build from there. So
Gotcha.
every time you get a promotion, every time you change jobs and you get a significant raise, put that towards retirement versus buying a new car, moving to a better apartment, changing your lifestyle because it really comes quickly, right? It's like I'm 40, I'll be 46 in a few days and I can't even believe I'm here and it
Wow.
comes so quickly. And by times you're 60, there's just really, I'm a financial advisor, I'm not a magician. There's just
Right.
not much I can do for you if you haven't done the work. And it's often decades in advance the work needs to be done.
Wow. Got you. Okay. All right. So now, sounds like you said the sooner the better, right? But then you
Hmm.
also have it where people they're in their 20s, they're really not trying to put anything
Yeah.
together usually. But then people get say they start, I think they start thinking about it when they get to their 30s. What's some advice that you can give for people that are in their 30s or potentially in their 20s that may be interested in starting the beginning stages of preparing for retirement? Real quick, be sure to download our free ebook today. All you got to do is scan this QR code right here or click the link in the description below. Now back to the video.
Sure. So, I mean, when I was in my 20s, I wasn't interested about retirement either. I didn't become interested in retirement until I started this work. And I started this work when I was 36. That's
Mm,
when I got serious about my own retirement and doing other people's retirement plan and seeing how not preparing can end up in a really bad position
Yeah.
really, set me straight on my own retirement plan. What I would tell someone in their 20s and 30s is I think there's more information on the power of time and compounding interest right now. And you can look it up on social media, you can look it up on YouTube, but there's a huge difference between starting at 25 versus starting at 35. And the difference can be millions when you are retired. So
Mm,
the biggest asset someone in their 20s or even their 30s really has is time. It goes so
mm.
quickly. Before you know it, you're in your mid 40s, in your mid 50s, and you're 60, and there's just not much to be done at that point.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That really is a lot to take in because
Mhm,
again, like you said, when we were in our 20s, we wasn't thinking about, things like that.
mhm.
But it's something that you should at least, try to start doing. Are there any accounts that you would suggest, or maybe not accounts, but maybe like some strategies that people should at least start preparing for? I know, like you mentioned, if you get a promotion at your job and things of that sort, what are some things that people should start at least looking for or researching? Because of course we know that they can most definitely come to your YouTube channel. Which,
Sure.
by the way, again, if you guys haven't done so, so make sure you guys go ahead and check out Robin at Your Rich Auntie on YouTube. And she talks about this stuff all the time. But what are some things that people could start preparing for right now?
Sure. So the first place I always advise people to look is at their current employer.
Mm,
Oftentimes, the current employer has a 401k plan, and sometimes there is a match.
mm,
And they'll match you dollar for dollar for a certain percentage of your income. They'll say, okay, 6% of your income, you earn 100,000, we'll match you $6,000 if you put money into your retirement account. A lot of people miss out on that simply because they don't sign up or they don't know about it.
right.
So I always tell people start with their employer first, check out their 401k plan, see if they have a match. If your employer doesn't have a 401k, there's an IRA account that you can set up,
Yeah.
and manage that yourself. But
Gotcha.
oftentimes the employer does have a 401k, and that's just the easiest. It comes right out of your paycheck. You don't even have to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it's set up automatically.
Mhm.
And like you said, because usually if it hits your primary account,
It's gone. It's gone. Yeah.
absolutely. And in our 850 Club Elite group, we were reading in well, we actually just wrapped up the book for June, and that was The Richest Man in Babylon.
Mhm.
And in that book, they talked about how a part of all you earn is yours to keep. And but it's just like you said, if that once that money hits the primary account, that money's gone.
Mhm.
Because people they pay everybody else but themselves first. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
crazy.
I
So
mean, even myself as a financial advisor, I have to kind of trick myself into savings. I get paid on Friday, and I'm like, I didn't get paid. American Express got paid. They took they took the whole check, and like if I didn't figure out a way to carve out a certain amount to trick myself into saving, American Express would get it all.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you know what though? But it's just like you said, you're human and we
Mhm.
all have to, put certain things in place to try to save a certain amount of money, for sure. So now what are some other things that people could do as well too? Let's say, for example, you talked about, because we talked about some key wealth building principles. Let's say, for example, that they should start incorporating into their financial planning, but beyond just maintaining a high credit score. And you
Mhm.
mentioned about, looking at an IRA. First off, what is an IRA? And then how does one work?
So an IRA is just an individual retirement account. It's an account that you can set up for yourself. You can go to E-Trade or anywhere and set it up for yourself that allows you to save for retirement. If you're under the age of 50, you can do 7,000 a year. If you're over the age of 50, you can do 8,000 a year.
Wow.
And if you do a traditional IRA account, you do receive a tax deduction for the money that you put in. If you do not do a traditional IRA, you do a Roth IRA, you don't receive a tax deduction, but all the growth on that money is tax free when you take it out. There is a caveat that you technically cannot touch the money until you're 59 and a half. If you do try to take the money before 59 and a half, it is penalized at 10%.
Mm, wow.
Hmm.
Got it. Okay. And that's good. That's good for people to know.
Hmm.
Because now, would you recommend that a person still consider an IRA even if they have, let's say, a 401k at their job?
It's a little bit tricky because the government technically doesn't want you double dipping, right? And so there's some maneuvers that a financial advisor can do to get around that. But setting up both a 401k and an IRA may may raise questions from the
Got it.
IRS. So I
Okay.
would focus, and the contribution limit of a 401k if you're under the age of 50 is 23,500 a year.
Okay.
And maybe 11% of Americans max it out. So I mean you're balling pretty hard if you can max out your 401k.
Got it. Got it. You balling pretty hard.
Mhm.
No, that's for sure. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty
Mhm.
good. Okay, perfect. Now, what are some other things that you talk about, specifically on your YouTube channel, to help people get better prepared, for retirement? What other things should people start, considering as well?
Well, something I talk about, and I think that this is a side effect of social media.
Yeah.
Social media has been a great tool for retirement building and wealth building. There's a lot of great information out there, and there's a lot of terrible information
Mm,
out there.
yeah.
I think I want to change the narrative about building wealth. Social media will make you think you'll be rich in your 20s. It just doesn't happen that way. You really need time.
Yeah.
You have to give everything time, and probably to reach your first million, if you want to go hard at it and focus on it nonstop, 20 years.
Mm,
20 years. And
mm,
so, you can reach that by time you're 40 if you start when you're 20, or you can reach that by time you're 60 if you start when you're 40. But it does require like laser focus and dedication to reach that number.
yeah.
And so, I'm hoping like with my channel, I'm kind of changing the narrative in terms of what you really need time. Unless you have some amazing stroke of luck, you get an inheritance, you win the lottery, you sell a business. And for most people, that just doesn't happen. The average age that a person becomes a millionaire is like 57,
Oh,
57. Yeah.
wow. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Isn't that something? And it's, I think you touched on something that a lot of people obviously see on a regular basis, and that is not just with social media, but a lot of times how social media may make people think how that success can happen, so quick or overnight. And in reality, if you want it to be, like where it has the right structure and it's going to last, like you said, it's going to take some time and it's going to actually take some laser focus. But people see things on social media and they think it's going to happen overnight, and it just
Right.
doesn't.
Right, and it takes capital to build capital. Like, I wish that was more transparent.
Yeah,
If you can start off with $100,000 cash, well, yeah, of course, you can get there faster. Who has $100,000 cash, right?
right.
So it takes capital to build capital. It takes time to really build compounding interest on that capital. And it takes compounding interest to make it all run. But having that core capital is what is most important. And we just often don't have that in our teens, 20s, even in our 30s, right?
Yeah. No, that's real. That's real
Hmm.
for a lot of people, especially, 100,000 just laying around or just
Hmm.
money in general, just to kind of get the ball rolling, but a
Hmm.
substantial amount of liquid because my wife and I, we own a real estate firm and we see that, with people struggling to save for a house sometimes,
Yeah.
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 So, now what's your take on home ownership? As far as I wouldn't necessarily say just buying property, but is there ever a time where you're talking about real estate as it pertains to retirement?
Mhm. And, I do I bought my condo. I live in San Francisco. I bought a home in San Francisco, almost 2 years ago. I
Wow.
I
Okay.
definitely have mixed thoughts on real estate, and as a real estate person, you'll have to tell me your
Yeah.
perspective on this. I
Yeah.
wanted to do it to have my part of the American dream,
Yeah.
right? It was drilled in me. I needed to own a home. I
Yeah.
felt like I was coming to the game late by buying my first home in my 40s, but it's San Francisco where the prices are
Right.
otherworldly
Yeah.
expensive and the requirements are just, next level. I don't know if I made the right decision in buying.
Mm.
And one of the big factors we have here in California is insurability. I love my condo, great neighborhood, great neighbors. There's only one insurer that will insure my condo.
Really? Wow.
Earthquake insurance is like,
Another
barely
mortgage.
affordable. And, insurance is the backbone of real
Mhm.
estate and the mortgage industry. I mean, if you can't insure a home,
Yeah.
you can't sell it,
That's
right?
right.
It's basically brick the value of your assets. So I'm seeing that more and more here in California. Even like it's not the price of the home, even though the
Yeah.
price of the home is ridiculous. It's insurability
That
that's
part.
stopping people from buying because they don't want
Mm.
to be stuck with an uninsurable property.
That's right. And you know
Mhm.
what? No, you know what? It most definitely makes sense. I tell people all the time, and especially with me have a national audience here in Illinois, we don't have that problem, and in most places, they don't have that type of problem. But because of that or climate change, I know we have
Mhm,
some clients down in Florida, and
mhm,
they're kind of going through a similar situation, or in New Orleans. So a lot of
mhm.
times people are having these conversations. They're like, "Hey, listen, does it make sense for me?" To go into home ownership or something like that? Or can I even afford it? Just because,
Right.
I've seen some of these flood insurance policies that people have, and it's like another mortgage, if not
Yeah.
half.
Yeah. I mean, I'm originally from New Orleans, and so
Oh,
my
wow.
family experienced Hurricane Katrina. Like, we literally lost I was maybe, what, 25
Wow.
when we lost everything, and my parents were right on the verge of retirement.
Wow.
And, they had all the right insurances. They had the flood insurance and the home, and it didn't matter.
Wow.
Because at the end of the day, the insurance companies didn't want to pay out,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
they had worked all these years. We had multiple properties, including, our primary residence,
Yeah.
and they were barely able to scrape together enough to buy another home in another part of the country. But
Wow.
it was decades of hard work erased, and insurance was supposed to come in and save the day, and they totally, the bums didn't want to pay up,
Right.
you know?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so it really gave me a very tinted view of the insurance industry. I have clients in Florida. I have clients all over, and you're right. Florida is another place where it's quickly becoming uninsurable,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
people are pulling out. Real estate deals are collapsing on
Yeah.
insurance once they find out, this place is not insurable, or that this insurance company is pulling out. The deal
Wow.
is a no go. So we're going to have to come up with some solution,
Yeah.
because it is the backbone of the real estate industry.
Yeah. It is. It is.
Mhm.
And what? I appreciate your perspective on that because sometimes that conversation isn't had on a
Mhm.
national level
Mhm.
because, like you said, people say, oh, get home, buy a home and equity and things of that. So because that's the case for like 85% of the nation, but you
Mhm.
get these areas or these pockets where, people talk about affordability, and that's just number one. But like
Mhm.
you said, it's got to be insurable. So it's got to make sense,
Mhm.
for sure. Well,
I
listen,
mean,
Robin, go
oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. You can cross the threshold of affordability, which is a huge hurdle, and
Yeah.
then realize you can't afford a property because you can't afford to insure it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's real. That really is. Well, listen, Robin, listen. Well, is there any advice before we get out of here today? Because I want to make sure we stay on your schedule. So, is there any advice that you would like to give people today if they are, they're not sure if they can even, start planning for retirement? Money's kind of tight, or they feel like it might be too late to even start. What's some advice that you would give them?
I would say just get started where you are at. Check out your workplace, see if they have a 401k plan. I've done retirement planning across a variety of income levels. And believe me, you do not want to retire to poverty. It's a really,
Mm,
really hard position to be in that too many Americans are finding themselves in.
yeah,
And, like I said, other than a time machine and going back 30 years, I can't fix it for the person.
that's right.
So, the time to start doing is now. Even if you can only do 100 or 200 a month, just get started.
Wow, just get started. You guys heard it from Robin here today. Okay, so make sure you guys go ahead and check out her YouTube channel. One of the best names in YouTube right now, Your Rich Auntie, okay, is out here giving people the information they need to start preparing for retirement. And listen, you want to start now, guys. You most definitely want to start sooner rather than later. Okay, but thank you so much, Robin, for stopping by the channel. We greatly appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video.